set
and he finishes it with authority.
The Pop Sox are the Wimbledon champions. They've beaten the unbeatables.
Episode 6 of Down to Earth, here in Prophecy at Hotel Georgia in downtown Vancouver. Pleased to be joined by a good friend of mine, known you for a long time, Vasek Pospisil. Vasek, Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Yeah.
There's a lot that I want to get into you with. Your career, Davis Cup, all sorts of things that have been going on. But currently, there's a lawsuit that's taking place.
Yeah.
You are obviously heavily involved in it. And I guess my first question to you is, where are we at with that, and what is the latest?
Yeah, so we just filed a major antitrust lawsuit in tennis. So that happened about 3 weeks ago. So it's still early days. We actually just filed a motion, and I have to fly to New York tomorrow morning to testify in front of the judge. So it's a busy time, and tennis has had a lot of issues. It's a monopoly right now, and it's artificially been suppressing player income and opportunities, and also the growth of the sport. I mean, tennis is third most watched sport in the world, second most bet on sport in the world, and vastly underperforming because of current circumstances.
When you explain to someone, or someone that isn't really known to what is happening with this, and maybe just a very casual observer of tennis, what's the end goal here? Like what do you hope to achieve from what's going on right now?
Yeah, I mean, the end goal for me, I think it's pretty clear. It's to have player independence and proper representation. I mean, we have a system in place right now in tennis where players are completely, on their own. There's an illusion of representation, but in reality, that's not the case, and that's reflected in 14% prize money, rev share. Just very, 11-month schedule, players being bound to the rule book and the rules of the ATP, with close to no flexibility. I mean, you get penalized if you don't play certain events, and we're labeled as independent contractors, but we're not being treated that way, and we don't have any other options, and you kind of are forced to play the tour and abide by the rules. And so it's to break through that, and also there's only 100 players that are making a living out of tennis, the top 100, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, so we have to fix that.
How much support have you received? I think in the beginning when I saw it come out, there really was an overwhelming amount of support from the players and things like that. And obviously, you're going to get pushback no matter what, and people don't really know, or they don't understand what's going on. But overall, what's the support been like?
It's been significant. I've but quiet. It's like phone calls, conversation, text messages, but players are afraid. Players are scared to be vocal. When we first launched 5 years ago, the ATP really started spreading a lot of fear for anyone that was associated with the PTPA, and so when we filed a couple weeks ago, I mean, I think a few weeks prior to that, I called hundreds of players, and everybody was on board with it, but nobody wants to really say anything publicly, and I understand why. I mean, and that's part of the problem.
What is the reason why? Is it sponsorships? Is it other things, or what is it?
Well, I'll give you an example. When we launched 5 years ago, the ATP sent out a kind of a relatively, I would call it, threatening email. They changed bylaws overnight that you're not allowed to be part of a player association and part of the PTP and part of the council and the ATP, and it's like this weird. And so everyone was just very, very scared. I mean, there was talk about pension, the pensions being reduced, or if you're part of the PTPA, that you maybe won't get your pension in the ATP, and so everyone was just scared because they're powerful. They're very powerful, and everyone, I mean, their players are happy that they're able to at least make something, because you train your whole life in the red, and then suddenly you're on tour and you're making a bit of money, and it's like, oh my gosh, but you're making a lot less than what you should be. And so it's I mean, they've taken advantage of a of the system for 30, 40 years, and tennis is a little bit in the dark ages, and we're one of the last sports. I mean, I'm sure there are a few others, but one of the last major global sports that hasn't had that breakthrough for its athletes, and it's been very hard to organize because there's so many language barriers, such an international sport, very isolating. So, but it's a process, and it took a long time and a lot of work.
One final one about this: why was it so important for you to be basically the spearhead of this? And you've taken a role where kind of like a president situation where, this is something that you're so passionate about, and it's something that you continue to fight for and will continue to fight for.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a man of principle. One, I value fairness. I mean, I don't like, so when I was, in my mid-20s and I started to really understand the business of tennis, and I was ranked quite high, and it was, it's the talk of the locker room. Players like, we're, getting screwed with the prize money. And so I kind of took it upon myself. I was like, well, okay, someone has to change this, and it's going to have to be me, I guess. Like, no one's put in the time or the energy, and I'm like, to actually fix the problem. And we can't let these guys get away with this, right? So that was just my, really what started it. And then when I had back surgery in 2019, I was off for 9 months, and I actually had the time and energy to put into it. So I was a bit naive. I thought I'd get it done a lot quicker. And then once you start putting in all this effort and energy, you can't stop, you can't quit. And it's, it's a really important thing to fight for. And honestly, if I've had an incredible career, but if I look back, I'm sure if I look back in 5-10 years, if this whole journey with the PTPA is successful, it will be the greatest contribution that I could have done for the sport, and the most meaningful thing that I could have done as a player. So, fingers crossed, but I think we're going to get there.
Well, that's what I think I kind of wanted to get into a bit, is a lot of people look to awards, they look to statistics, they look to rankings when they're all said and done in their career, and that is part of their legacy. This, to me, seems like it would be near the top of your list as far as what you could have given to the game, but what has Vasek Pospisil done for tennis? I think that itself is probably a lot bigger.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, you nailed it. Like I said, especially now, the last, few years of my career, as you get older, you start to realize that, maybe the best years are behind you, and there's no better, mission to put your energy behind than to change the sport in such a positive way. And I really believe that if we're successful, and I'm very confident we will be, and so are our lawyers, and I'm saying if, but I'm going to say, I'm going to change that to when we're successful. I truly believe that tennis will thrive, not only for the athletes themselves, but for the fans, even the tournaments. It's going to be better for everyone, and there's a history of that, right? If you look at the other sports, it's happened in every single one of the sports when there's been a major antitrust case, such as this one. The players win, and then the sport thrives. So it'll be the same in tennis.
Okay, let's take things back a bit. This obviously is the future, and we're here now, and what is going to happen. But I kind of want to get into you a little bit. Known you for a long time, covered you playing, obviously, and known each other from both being in these parts of the country. But your family, had to make a move and had to make a choice to come here to help better your career and do that. So what was that like growing up for you?
Yeah, well, it must have been very, very tough on my family. I was born here in Canada a year after they escaped the communist regime in former Czechoslovakia. They didn't speak the language, came here with no money, basically, and my dad just started working at factories. He started with 2 jobs, and my mom was taking care of my brothers and then myself, and became obsessed with tennis. My dad did, and ever since I can remember, when I started walking, the dream was to be a tennis player, which, maybe it was a good thing that my dad was also a bit naive, because we were living in a small town, Vernon, hockey town, with hardly any tennis courts, and I think the odds of making it into professional tennis at a high level from the town of Vernon is probably pretty close to zero, and I wouldn't have been able to do it if it wasn't for my parents, how much they sacrificed, and my dad specifically, who coached me till I was 20 and quit his job at some point just to travel with me on a shoestring budget, going, sleeping in rest areas, playing these tournaments, and so it's a long journey. Yeah.
What was that like? Not only having your dad as your coach, living in a hockey town. Why tennis? Like, what made you drawn to the sport?
Well, I think I mean, as soon as, like I said, from a young age, I have two older brothers.
Yeah.
They're 7 and 8 years older. They were playing tennis, and I looked up to them so much. So I wanted to be like my brothers. So there was never any other option. It was tennis, and my dad was just so crazy about the sport. So it's a better question for him. I'm like, why tennis? Why were you? He just became obsessed. So naturally, when your whole family is obsessed with tennis, I mean, when you're 3-4 years old, you know, there was never anything else. It was just homeschooled. I was just focused from a very young age. It was basically a full-time job from the age of 9. I think when I was 9 years old, I considered it a full-time job, and homeschooled a year later. And I think if I didn't do all that, then I wouldn't be here.
You turned pro. What was that like when you initially, make the jump and you say that, I'm a professional tennis player and I can make a living doing this?
Yeah, well, I guess there's a bit of a gray area between calling yourself a professional tennis player and making a living. Yeah. And that goes down to the issue that we spoke of earlier. I mean, you're really only making a living if you're, around 100 in the world. Yeah. But you're calling yourself a professional tennis player when you have a few ATP points and ranked 1,000 in the world or 1,400. But I was like, are you really professional? It's like, yeah, you're actually very, very good and you are professional, but you're not making a living. So, but I would say that once I got ranked globally and got my first few ATP points, it was a huge milestone. And it was very, very special. Obviously, it felt like the dream already was coming true, the fact that I was playing at such a high level. But it wasn't until really I was 20 years old that I started breaking through, won a couple small tournaments, and then relatively quickly got to Grand Slam level, playing qualifying events, qualified for US Open. And I mean, it was so surreal. It happened pretty quickly once I started getting some momentum. And it was crazy. I mean, just within a couple of years, I was sleeping in the car to staying at 5-star hotels, but I was very fortunate because I broke through at a relatively young age.
You mentioned that sleeping in the car, and I guess that you mentioned you're a man of principle and obviously humble. So what's that like mentally? Because you're still trying to go out and compete at your best and be your best in a professional setting, but you're not in that luxury of a 5-star hotel yet. You're still trying to make ends meet and go about that. And another thing, being on the road, how lonely is it sometimes?
Oh yeah, no. The tennis is very demanding, both physically and mentally. You're making huge sacrifices. You're traveling away from friends and family basically all year. Very hard to build any kind of social life. And then it is very isolating. I mean, we're not meant to be on planes every week and being away from your friends and family. I mean, I didn't really even have any friends, to be honest, until I was 29 years old. And that's the truth. I'll tell you that right now. My brothers were my best friends. I mean, they still are, but they were my best friends till I was 29. When I had back surgery, I had a social life for the first time ever and made a bunch of friends in Vancouver and it was tough. I mean, honestly, even when I went through a bit of a crisis when I was 26. I was ranked top 40 in the world at that time, and I had almost a bit of an existential crisis. I was like, what am I doing? Why am I? Because I was unhappy. I had all these great results on the court and was making good money but I found myself not wanting to be playing tennis, and that was just because. Just the nonstop travel and work and no off season. Tennis is the worst off season in sports probably, and it's very mentally demanding. Yeah.
How do you get through that? Maybe not how do you get through that in its totality, but how do you get through that, or how did you begin to try and get through that where you did want to keep playing? Yeah,
it was. I think. Looking back, I wish I had more balance in my life, and it's so hard to, it's so difficult. That's kind of catch-22 in tennis, because in some ways, if you want to be successful, you have to completely dedicate yourself completely, and if you do that, then it's very hard to have balance because the schedule is so grueling, right? So for me, I think, I had, like, when I had surgery, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, honestly, in my tennis career, because I suddenly grew more as a person. I learned a lot more about myself. I had friends that I suddenly, that I never had before. and I was just a lot happier on the court when I had more going on in my life. And I was still able to commit, 90% of my effort into the sport, but I still had that 10% that I didn't have prior to that surgery, and building something outside of the sport, whether it was, some investments or learning about the business world. And again, socially, that's number one. And I was just much happier after that surgery. I would just say, obviously looking back, I would have maybe done things a little bit differently, but you can never know. I mean, and if I had done things differently, who knows? If I didn't fully commit myself, then maybe I wouldn't have had the career that I had, and maybe that's the sacrifice that you have to make in tennis specifically.
How low can it get? I mean, you talk about players not making ends meet, talk about, salaries being low, and obviously something that you're striving towards for is to change that. But the loneliness, the demanding of the sport, and you said it, you're going through an existential crisis a little bit.
I was.
How low are the lows?
Oh yeah, they can be pretty damn low. Yeah, they can be pretty damn low, especially if you're, you're on the road. You don't have, like I said, friends and family close to you. If you start losing a bunch of matches, you lose confidence. Then you find yourself traveling to, God knows where, staying, at these random places around the world, chasing ATP points and a paycheck, and losing money every week. There are very few players that are actually, finishing the year or going to any event and actually putting money in their pocket. Everyone else is losing money, and that's not a great feeling. So it's a demanding sport. I'll tell you. It's obviously I can't compare it with others necessarily. I can guess what it would be like in other sports, but I can tell you that tennis is brutal.
It is demanding, but yourself, Milos, Dennis, Felix on the men's side, have started to see this rise of tennis in this country. And have you noticed it? You see younger kids now that are playing a lot more. It's becoming way more apparent now that tennis is becoming a sport where Canada isn't looked down upon as much as it used to be. You kind of feel that way? Is it that way?
Yeah, for sure. I think when I started off, you always need role models, and kind of like heroes within your country to look up to, and it also gives you kind of the confidence that, I remember when I was coming up, that player for me was Daniel Nestor, who was, and he's a doubles, he was a great singles player as well. I don't want to make anyone upset. He was 65 in the world in singles, which is amazing, but he focused on doubles, and then everyone knows him mostly for his doubles results, as did I when I was young. But he was that role model, and it was interesting because I know even when I was young, I was thinking can Canada even have, top singles players? Like, we never had one before, but I was like, but doubles, we can amazing. We have a great doubles history. And so I think what happened was, of course, when Milos and when Milos broke through, it actually pushed me up, because he and I grew up together. I never lost to him in juniors, and then he beat me early, and we have a close record in pros. But and then suddenly I saw him break through, and it kind of elevated. It really motivated me. I'm like, how's this possible? How did he? And then 6 months later, I broke through, right? So, and then now you have a lot of young players that are playing in Canada that have Felix and Dennis to look up to, and Bianca and Jeannie was there with us, and I think it just, when you have success, it breeds more success and the belief in the nation, and our tennis program is getting better too. So I think that Canada can be a great tennis nation for many years.
Your Davis Cup record is stellar. Why did you take so much pride in that?
You know what? Because you're playing for more than yourself. You're playing for your teammates. You're playing for your country. There's so much more on the line. It was very special. Back from when I was like 16 years old, I always wanted to play Davis Cup. or from a young age, I was like, oh, I really want to play for Canada. And it just was something that was so important to me from the very beginning. And I don't know, I love the pressure. I really do. I felt that, I feel like sometimes playing, tournaments throughout the year, if I don't have a big crowd there, it's sometimes it's a bit hard for me to get super motivated. Like, I'm very motivated, but I just play better. I play better when there's more on the line, when there's more eyes watching. It's just, I enjoy it. Maybe I like to perform in front of people. I don't know what it is, but yeah. And then and Davis Cup was that, and all, and just more like when you win Davis Cup matches, it feels like the reward is greater. Like the whole nation is like fired up about it, and your teammates and so it's very special, and it was something that we as a team wanted to win probably for the last 10 years. So then when we were finally able to lift the trophy 2 years ago, that was one of the highlights of my career.
What's that like, though? You said it since you were about 16, or really for as long as you can remember, the Davis Cup was won, and then like we've talked about, tennis was looked down upon in this country. So for you guys in that group, in that moment, to be able to go and do that, was it more of a we did it moment or we're here moment?
It was more of a like we did it, because we had some top ranked guys for a while. I mean, like I said, with Milos coming up, and then myself and Jeannie and then Dennis and Felix were at the top for a few years before we won that title. So we knew we were knocking on the door. We made finals in 2019, and we really just wanted to get that title for the first time. And that year specifically, we had luck on our side too. We had luck on our side too, for sure. We should have been eliminated prior to the final 8, but we snuck through. And then once we made the quarterfinals, we just felt like this was our time. It was a feeling that I can't describe in the locker room. It's like all of us were just like we're winning it this year. Like, it was just, we were so sure without actually verbalize, like we didn't speak about it, like we're going to win. We did a little bit jokingly, but I just felt like everyone in the locker room had this feeling that this was our year to win it. And then, we did it. It was cool.
Can you explain what that feeling is like to nobody? Because a lot of people watching, we watch sports. We're all casual sports viewers. Like, Tiger at a tournament. You want to be as dialed in as you can possibly be. What's that feeling like when you can go into a locker room, you look at each other in the eye, you don't say anything, but you just know you're in that moment?
Well, I think the best way to describe it, or I think what really worked for us that year, was that all the stars aligned, and the whole team, well, it was myself, Dennis, and Felix that played all the matches, the important matches that year. We all peaked at the time of the finals, of the final 8. Like, Felix was on a tear. He won like 3 tournaments in a row. Dennis, I think struggled a little bit earlier in the year, and then he picked up momentum going into that final. And myself as well, I went off winning a couple tournaments and was super confident. So we were just, when you're high in confidence, you don't even like doubt, you don't question that you're going to go and like lose a match, or you're not like in your head about anything. You're going on the court and you're not overthinking. You're in a flow state. So I think all of us were in that flow state at the same time in some ways. And I think, and it just kind of happened. But that's
who are some of your close friends on tour, and kind of people that you looked up to when you were going through the ranks?
I would say, like Daniel was a good friend. Nestor, he was obviously on tour for several years, and the years that I kind of was breaking through. Dancevich is a great friend as well. Early years, obviously he's retired a while ago. I think I was very close with Novak for quite some time, for maybe 4 or 5 years or so. We're still close, but there was 4 or 5 years where we were very close, I would say. Now I'm not really on tour that much either. I've been injured a lot and I haven't played very many events, so we just don't see each other very much. But those are the 3. And now obviously I love, Felix is just an amazing guy, but same thing, I'm not really on tour these days. So But I'd say those are some notable names. Yeah, and Christian Harrison. Shout out to Christian. He was my best friend on tour for a while.
When you bounce ideas off people like Frank, Daniel, Novak, what are those conversations like for you? Because you're still a young guy, and these guys are accomplished, have been on tour for a while. So for you, what are the questions? What are those conversations like? Or is it more so you guys aren't even talking about tennis?
The only person that I talked to about tennis, in that way, would have been Novak.
It's probably a good one.
Yeah, it would have been Novak. I mean, Daniel, we're just giving each other shit in the locker room, and it's more like is different. With Novak, it was someone that I genuinely was trying to learn from, like, every moment that I could, because this is someone that is, the greatest of all time in our sport, arguably, in all sports. I mean, you can put him in the conversation, right? So he's a special type of a person. So I just tried to soak in as much info from him as I could without overdoing it, because we're still friends. I didn't want him to feel like I was just there trying to pick his brain, which is not true, right?
Yeah.
Either. I mean, I really like Novak for, since we met, but he was a very interesting guy, very special. I mean, very unique. And when you get to spend a few days with him, you start to understand, okay, why he is who he is. He's built different. He's just, strongest guy, strongest person I think I've ever met, like, mentally anyway.
Say you're not on tour much, not playing much events. Do you miss it? And how much do you miss it?
You know what? This is going to sound bad. I don't miss it as much as I should, probably. It's been such a huge part of my life. And I think part of that is it's a combination of being a bit burned out. How much of that has just been, taking its natural course, and how much of that is the player association and the stress that came with that, maybe accelerating the burnout process. And then there's also an element of the last 4 or 5 years being interested in business and investing and the entrepreneurial world, which I'm super passionate about. It's just so fun for me. So I think that's combining it with those other elements, I think just kind of has moved me away from the tennis court a little bit. And I miss it for sure. I'm still on tour. So I'm not retired yet. Yeah. So I shouldn't be speaking like this, but I do miss being healthy and being on the tour and competing at the highest level. But I'm also just so excited for the next stage of my life and being in one place for more than a week, and building the next phase of my life, like I said.
Okay, I got 2 questions for you. One, someone told me to ask you about the balls in tennis and what's the deal there? Why? What's going on?
I don't know. I mean, after COVID, something happened with the quality of the balls. I don't know what the manufacturers have done, but the quality dropped tremendously. Even the air pressure, they're like kind of softer, very hard on your arm. And I'm 99.9% sure that the balls were the reason for my elbow injury. Okay. And I had 3 elbow tears the last few years, which is really what kind of took me off the tour. And nobody can convince me that it was anything other than the balls. So yeah, it's unfortunate. And the last couple of years, the amount of elbow, shoulder, wrist injuries in the locker room, I've never seen anything like it.
Really?
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it. And I was talking to the physios, the ATP physios, and they told me that the surge of elbow issues that's happened in the last few years is like incredible. So it has to be the balls, right? So anyway, it's something that I'm sure that will be addressed soon, even though we've been trying to get the tours to address this for a few years now, but we'll see.
Okay, well, there's that aspect of question for someone that wanted to...
The Player Association will be able to help with that.
Absolutely.
So.
I guess really the final one for me is, I don't want to put you on the spot here, and obviously I don't want to talk about like your tennis career is over, because it certainly isn't that, but do you remember a win that you had that probably sticks out among the rest that for a different reason. It doesn't have to be, one of the bigger ones. Could be one of the maybe the challenger events or something like that. But one that sticks out to you that you remember it for, whether it was overcoming adversity or felt dominant or whatever it was. But what's one that sticks out to you?
So the go-tos would normally be, okay, the Wimbledon final or beating Andy Murray when he was number one, but for me it was the third round. Was it the third round or second round? I should remember which round this was. It was the third round of the Montreal Masters event when I was 23 years old. I was just breaking through, starting to play a high level. Got the wild card into the Masters event. Won my first 2 matches, and played Berdych in the third round, and I won 7-6 in the third. And the crowd went absolutely nuts. It was my first top 10 win, and I mean I got pretty emotional after the match because it was kind of like my breakthrough event. I ended up making the semifinals that week and broke into the top 30 not long after that. And that was kind of my most memorable match for sure. Just the crowd support, kind of this kid that came out of nowhere in some way. I mean, I was already relatively known in tennis, but that was the most special match of my career.
I thought it was going to be Andy Murray.
That's probably number 3.
Yeah.
That's number 3.
And
Because
Wimbledon?
Wimbledon, I mean, winning Wimbledon was, it's unforgettable. It's hard to put anything above that, but I think I put it as the most memorable match and meaningful for some reason was my first, top 10 win against Berdych in Montreal, and then Wimbledon and Murray after those two. After that.
Vasek, thank you so much for this. I appreciate it. Good luck with everything. I can't wait to see kind of where this goes, and good luck with the rest of your career. And again, huge shout out to Prophecy here in downtown Vancouver at Hotel Georgia. This was episode 6 of Down to Earth.